So welcome back to a new video, the first of 2020. I actually did not know what topic to sort of handle today because I'm still waiting for a few parts. And as you know, I don't make videos if I don't have anything to add. But I decided today to talk a tiny bit about the, let's say, 3 months of use of the A7R4 that I now have compared to A7R3. I know that I've made a list of about 50 differences between the A7R4 and the A7R3. If you want to watch that, it's almost like a troll video that I can post as a reply when people say, oh, there's almost no differences, and you can watch this whole hour of me listing 50 different updates. But today I want to just talk and point out a few things that I noticed when in use that I actually now really like about the A7R4, which were not on that list or not as clearly on this list. So let's go for the first one, and the first one is actually of course I made a list because otherwise I forget. So the unlock button in the finger area. I know this sounds a bit cryptic, but let's show what I'm talking about. So this is the A7R4. I will balance it a little bit so it's easier for you to see. Now there's about 3 or 4 millimeters of extra space here. And you quite easily can notice that if I have really big hands. And that's why I'm using the L brackets and I work on these L brackets. But you can see that it's now much easier to slide in there. But as a side effect, if you're holding it, so let me try to mimic that by trying to hold it and then still show you. As a side effect, it's almost impossible now for your finger to hit the unlock button. Right? It's quite far away, and especially if you look at it from the other view, if you look at it as in this way, because I'm using the grip, your hand also moves a little bit lower. So if I'm in the normal position, you can see there's quite a big gap now between where the button is and where my finger is. So you don't feel it, which is of course one nice thing. But the second thing is that although I didn't really have much of a problem with that, only with some things like extension tubes on a 19 millimeters, and I had it on, I think it was on a Sigma with a teleconverter, that there was a risk that I would unlock the lens by mistake. This problem for me is now totally gone, and I also don't feel it anymore, making it a tiny bit more comfortable when sort of holding it, because it's almost never your finger is touching the unlock sort of area. So just as a comparison, let's compare it with the A7R3, which looks a little bit weird now because I'm using a prototype L bracket on it, and I was not sure if I can show it to you, so I put some tape on part of it. But you can see that if I do my fingers from left to right, that you can already see that my fingers are hitting it even without me sort of trying. You can clearly see if I do it like this, that it hits well. On the A7R4, you can see that I can almost slide my finger without it touching it, right? So why is this a big deal? Because when you're holding it, you notice that for me at least, it's quite easy for me to touch this button. And if you're holding it like this, you can see, well, let me not show the bracket too much, but you can see that it's quite easy for me to almost by mistake unlock it. But even worse would be, in my opinion, that I can feel that it's there. So sometimes when you're shooting, you just feel it sort of being there. So that's not something that I like, and I actually, of course, with the bigger lenses, one of the good things is that you have more room for your fingers so they don't touch. So let me put this one away and get back to the A7R4. So the nice thing is, of course, that you can also have a little bit more room when you're using like the 24 GM or the 85 GM, that you have a little bit more space so your knuckles don't touch the lens. But as a nice side effect, it's also there's more room that you don't hit the unlock button. So that was number one. So number two is tracking and recompose. One of the main reasons for me to upgrade was to allow for this tracking mode. So I really like that, and for me it was one of the major reasons to upgrade. So the hit rate for me is much higher on the A7R4, simply because it's now sort of almost an automatic system. It does eye detect, then face detect, then tracking, and then if it can't do anything, it will go back into its default mode. So the nice thing about that, if you use it, so let's try to track this little doll over there. So there we go. You can see that is now tracking this. What is extra nice about it, because you can see that I have the red button or the red color on the focus point, is that you can also track and recompose. So let's assume that this is a face. You can sort of aim it to the face that you want, start tracking it, and then recompose. So it's kind of like the old recompose and shoot, but now of course you're in tracking mode. It means that it makes it really easy to pick up a subject or a face that you want and then select it and then move it. Of course, if you're doing it on a real face and not like a doll, then you would see the face block sort of pop up. So you know that you have that face, and you can just sort of lock, recompose and shoot. So that's really nice. That was number 2, which I really, I don't want to move back. Let me be fair about it. For me, this would be a major reason to get one of the Generation 4s cameras which have the live tracking stuff. So number 3 is, I'll skip number 3, so we'll get back to that one, because there's buffer issues and I think it's best I show that last. Compensation dial and the override feature. So one thing is this new lock, of course, on the A7R4, and I really like that because I used to by accident, sort of by mistake, push it, but also I combine it with, I'm not sure how many people are using it, with a feature that you can actually program the front dial and the back dial in a different way. So if you're not in fully manual, but you are in aperture or in shutter shutter mode, it means that you have one of the dials free, and I always put it on compensation mode. So if let's wake up the camera again. So if I focus, you can see that if I use the front dial, for me it's in this case the f-stop, which kind of makes sense. So we are on a 1.8 lens, so you can see I can move it about any way I like. And but this one I put on compensation. Now you don't have to do that, but it's free anyway. So I ended up not using this dial at all anymore. I hope Sony, maybe they can reprogram it for something different, because there's still one sort of downside, that if you don't put it on 0, you can see that this dial does not work anymore, which was always like this. So one of the scary parts before, if you by accident touch this button and it was not on clear 0, then it would disallow any other control of your compensation dial. So I very much prefer this one. And if you look at it, how I'm holding the camera, which is also this shot, sorry, you notice that for me it's I simply don't touch this by mistake, so it's very close, it's very easy to reach, so I like that a lot. So combined with that, I also, in a weird way, I'm starting to use less dials, which is kind of weird, because we just talked about I don't use this dial a lot anymore, because it's kind of, this role is being taken over most of the time by this dial, unless of course I'm in fully manual, because then I can unlock this one and I have a compensation if I need there, but you have your triangle controls over there. But I also, before, I had this dial on my ISO settings, and to be fair, that was nice, but at times I hit it by mistake and we were on the wrong settings. So one thing which is really nice, you can now also override the dials. So the moment that I hit this button, you can see the way that I've programmed it is that if I do that, then my front dial changes behavior. So if we notice that now it's aperture, right? So, but if I hit this dial, you can see that it now becomes my ISO control. I can sort of control the ISO. So the nice thing is I can't do it by mistake anymore, because I really have to, sorry, I'm looking at the other monitor. I really have to hit the correct sort of dial to be able to sort of do that. I think an improvement, because that means that this dial, I still use it for other things, but not for my ISO anymore, which I used to do. Now I sort of hit this button and I can use the front dial to basically change my ISO if I don't want to be in auto ISO. So I think a very useful one. So number 4, dual gain settings. So one complaint that I'm seeing, and I don't agree with it fully, but let's assume that there is some value to the argument that's being made, is that it's not as easy to get sharp images on the 61 megapixel sensor. Now, I think with a new tracking mode, it's easier to get more pictures or higher hit rate. But one of the arguments, of course, is that you need to keep your shutter speed up. So one thing which I think for some people might be a good starting point, not the only solution, but the A7R4 has a dual gain structure, like all Sony cameras have these days, but this one is quite low. It's already at 320. So you're losing a little bit of dynamic range, but you gain speed on your shutter with not too much loss, because the dual gain means that you have 100 to 320, and then from 320 a different circuitry takes over, which has less noise and then goes further into the range. So one thing which, let me then use the trick before, so let's go into the auto setting. One thing I at times do, let me get my camera and set it up correctly. Okay, sorry about this. So if I go to settings, right, so the ISO settings, so normally you will be at 100, and if I do this in this case, you can see that we are jumping to 125 ISO, because, 125 shutter speed and an ISO of 1000, right? So in this case, that doesn't make too much sense, so I can't really resolve it because I need more light. But in concept, the idea is that if, of course I can close up the... No, we can't push it far enough. So, but the nice thing, if you go into your auto ISO and put it on 320 as your starting point, that means that if there is a situation where it can sort of go to all the way down, if that makes sense, you will see that that the shutter time is different. So let's force that a little bit. So in this case, if I would be on an ISO, so let's not do it on auto, but let's do it on manual. If I would be on 100, I would get a shutter time of 1/13 of a second, which probably on this camera is now too low. But if I go to 320, right, so if I push this button and then turn it to 320, my hands are a little bit in a weird position. So 320 is the second point of the dual gain structure. You will see that we are now at 1/40th, which on a 50mm is enough to get it sharp. So I think the fact that they put this auto ISO gain, dual gain structure so low in the ISO range is actually something very useful when you get started with the A7R4 to get more sharper images. There are other ways to do it. Of course, you can also put the default speed on not slow or normal, but put it on fast. It will kind of do the same thing. But if you really want to make sure that you get a good balance, you might set it to 320 in your auto ISO range. So this was tip number 5 or 6. So we only have one more left, which was the one that, let me make sure they've all got unlocked before. Yep, I got all of them. So the one that I want to show you is the buffer story. So let me check if I'm on compressed. Show you. We can also do this on uncompressed. It kind of has the same result, but I personally feel that compressed is a better setting for most people. So let me also put it on a correct shooting mode. So I put it on high, and I did put my silent shutter on because I don't want to put extra counts there. So one of the arguments that we are getting is that compared to, let's say, the new Canon cameras, that the raw buffer is kind of bad. Now, I think if you're doing it in a reasonable way, and let me show you, I have two fast cards in here. Let me show you what I mean. I'm at 8 shots per second because I think that's the highest sensible shutter speed. You can put it on high plus, but I think this makes more sense. And you can see that if I take pictures, and if I do it in a reasonable burst, because you don't want to do it in silly bursts, come on. So let's do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that even with 61 megapixel sort of files, the buffer is not that quick to fill. Now we can put it on RAW mode, and I will do that in this case. So let's go to RAW mode, fully uncompressed, and do the same thing. You'll see that it has effect, but we also have sort of a workaround for that. So let's do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But you can see if you do reasonable burst, even in 61 megapixel uncompressed, I don't really see what people are complaining about, because you can see only on this burst I took about 4. Let's check the last one. It takes a little bit longer to write. Does not mean that I can't shoot, because I can still shoot, but you can see it probably took about 40 images in that burst. Now of course one of the nice things is you can put it in crop mode. So even in RAW, if we put it in crop mode, so let's do that. Here we go. Now it's in crop mode. So let's do the same thing. Again, we still have 26 megapixels, right? Which is more, for example, like the new Canon. I'm not saying this is the same camera. I'm not saying that this is a sports camera, but just to give you somewhat a comparison about how silly I think some of these remarks are. We are now at 26 megapixel image, about 85 millimeter, because we are 35 times 1.5, and we are still in RAW, right? So uncompressed RAW. And let's do the same thing, but now on what I think is quite a comparable sort of camera to a DSLR sports camera, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see I'm writing to dual slots, and I did about, let's say 2-3 second bursts, which are quite a lot of bursts, and then only take half the time of wait time between them. And let's see, how, for example, on the last burst, how many images we got. We got, and I have to, because my eyes are not, we got 18 on the last burst. So let's go to the one before and check that one. We got 18 on, so about 18 shots. So that makes sense, about 2 seconds shots in that burst. And I think that's more than reasonable. So if we go to compressed mode, right? So which I think makes more sense most of the time, and I will even do it with a shutter on one time. So it's a really fair comparison. So we go to compressed. Here we go. We take it out of silent mode, which I put on this button always. So let's check. Yep, we are on. So let's do one more test, again in crop mode, because I think that actually makes sense in this case, and see what happens if we do this 10 to count to 10 and then 5 release cycle, because holding it down for 10 minutes doesn't make any sense. I've done this test before, and you can see it on my previous videos. We can get about 200 shots into buffer, but my point here is the people who are complaining about that the raw buffer is not good enough, I'm not seeing where they are coming from. So let's go for let's go for, I will first do a few 5, 5, and then a few 10, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see it still needs a bit of time, but you also see the bar. It basically did not go down in any substantial way. So just again to be complete, let's take it out of raw mode, because then I'm not sure what else to show you again. Let's see how much we got in this burst, by the way. So on average we got about 20, the last burst was 22 shots. So let's let me put it into raw again, which again I personally would not do, but that's just me. But now we are uncompressed raw images at in crop mode at 26 megapixels, right? Which is more than the Canon Mark 1DX Mark III, and more than most of the cameras which we are comparing it with. So uncompressed, crop, 26 megapixels, still quite enough. And let's go for again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then rest 1, 2, 3, 5, and then do the 10 thing. So I'm putting more time on my shutter, but here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that I'm now slowly starting to hit the end of the buffer, but we've done quite a few bursts in this case, and you can see that if you are doing normal shooting, I don't even see how you get close to this setting. So let's see on the last burst how many we got. So let me press this button, and let's see on this one. We got about 20 shots, which makes sense. Again, about 2 seconds holding it down in uncompressed mode. So the buffer issue, if you're wondering about that, I don't think it's an issue. Let me put it best to compress, because otherwise I might forget. And I really prefer them in compress for all kinds of reasons that we already talked about. So this is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this first video of the year, and maybe I've dispelled or a few things that people are saying about the A7R4 and showed you a few extra tricks or changes that I found very useful over using the camera. I must say I'm extremely happy with the camera. I think it's the best camera they made so far. I think it's rightly so being picked as camera of the year by most of the websites. Yes, it's more money. Yes, it's I wouldn't say main difference. I personally would not have disliked a cheaper 42 megapixel one sensor, but I'm totally fine with the 61 megapixel sensor once you get used to it, and all the other changes in the body, in the settings, in things like the FTP, all things I've talked about in the video before. For me, this camera is good value. Does not mean that's as good of a value as some of the other cameras, but it is basically their flagship model if you don't consider the A9 Mark II, which is a totally different sort of class. So of all basically most likely we'll have now 3 high-end model or flagship models. So let's assume we get an A7R4, and let's assume we have the A7R3 4, and we have the A9 Mark II. I think these are flagship products, and I think the price value comparison on them is quite well. I think it will be also very interesting to see once the Mark IV comes out, so the normal Mark IV, because we will see this dual structure in Sony, where you have the Model 3, so the A7R3 and the A7R4, the A7 Mark III and the A7 Mark IV, again 2 price points, and the A9 Mark I and the A9 Mark II. Of course, all the tools have the new body design with all the changes I've just showed you, and I think that's what this video was about. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.